Hi there BookTube, it's Eleanor here and I want to talk to you about some books I've read recently. These haven't all been read this week, they have been read over the past couple of weeks. If you noticed, I didn't do a Friday reads / what I've read this week last week. I just wasn't in the mood to film and I'd only read one or two books by then and nothing had really blown me away or anything, so I just thought I would combine them into this one. So we're going to have to move a little bit fast. First I want to talk to you about a series of graphic novels that I have been reading. If you watched my vlog on the Let's Get Graphic Readathon, which myself and Caitlin from Kitty G hosted, which was great fun, I reread volumes 1 to 3 of Nailbiter and then continued on and finished this series. So there's 1 to 6 volumes in Nailbiter and I really enjoyed it. And one of you in the comments mentioned that you were reading another series of graphic novels which were written by the same author, and that was called Birthright by, here we go, find the first one, Williamson, Bresson and Lucas. And so I picked up the first 4 volumes from my local library, hence why the super shiny covers. And this was a totally different type of story to Nailbiter, but equally as compelling. So thank you so much to the person who recommended this. I really enjoyed the artwork. And this is a fantasy story about a young boy and he heads into the woods. He's playing catch with his father. The ball goes into the forest. He runs into the forest to get the ball and never comes back out. We skip to over a year later. The mother has left the father because the father is under this sort of scrutiny as if perhaps he killed the son, and the mother has left him. He's become a bit of an alcoholic. The older brother is getting in fights at school defending his brother and fighting when people take the mickey out of him for sort of still looking for his brother. And then all of a sudden this brute of a Conan Barbarian type person turns up with the same DNA as his brother, looking like his brother, but it's impossible it could be his brother because this person is like 20 years older and totally different, and it's only been a year. And we skip from past and present. We look at what happened to him when he went into the forest, and we look at where he's come now and his reasons and what's happening, and it's just so much fun. It's got, you know, another world that's in danger and a chosen one and magic and different characters, and it is so good. I binge read these over 2 days and now I can't wait for volume 5 to come out, but I've got to wait a little while because it's not till mid-July. But I am in love with this series, so thank you so much to the person who mentioned this. Yes, love it. And I've been on a bit of a YA contemporary kick. So firstly I picked up Love and Gelato by Jenna Evans Welsh. I was very kindly sent this by the publisher, but it doesn't affect my views in any way, as always, and I really enjoyed this. We're following our young protagonist, Lena, and she's spending the summer in Tuscany. We learn at the very beginning of the book that Lena's mother has died of cancer, and that Lena has been sent over to Tuscany to live with her father for the summer and to get to know him. She didn't even know he existed. She's a bit resistant, and we just follow her journey. We find her mother has sent over this journal from when she was younger. Her mother was a photographer and she filled these journals out with her life, and she sent one of the journals over Lena's never seen about her time when she was in Tuscany and her time with her father. And we follow Lena discovering about this, discovering the past, overcoming a little bit of her grief and just finding out who she is and learning more about her mother. And I really enjoyed this. It was a really good read. And a couple of you mentioned last time that you enjoyed me reading out a little bit at the beginning. So a couple of books every now and again, I'm going to read you out the first few pages so you can get an idea of the writing style. This was a very easy writing style. It was engaging and it was a very fast-paced read. So I'll just read you a little bit at the very first pages. You've had bad days before, right? You know, the ones where your alarm doesn't go off, your toast practically catches on fire, and you remember way too late that every article of clothing you own is soaking wet at the bottom of the washer. So then you go hurtling into school 15 minutes late, praying no one will notice that your hair looks like the Bride of Frankenstein's. But just as you slide into your desk, your teacher booms, Running late today, Miss Emerson. And everyone looks at you and notices. I'm sure you've had those days, we all have. But what about really bad days? The kind that are so pumped up and awful that they chew up the things that you care about just for the fun of spitting them back in your face. The day my mum told me about Howard fell firmly in the real bad category. But at the time, he was the least of my worries. It was 2 weeks into my sophomore year of high school and my mum and I were driving home from her appointment. The car was silent except for a radio commercial narrated by Arnold Schwarzenegger impersonators. And even though it was a hot day, I had goosebumps up and down my legs. Just that morning, I'd placed second at my first ever cross-country meet and I couldn't believe how much that didn't matter anymore. My mum switched off the radio. "Lena, what are you feeling?" Her voice was calm and when I looked at her, I teared up all over again. She was so pale and tiny. How had I not noticed how tiny she'd gotten? "I don't know," I said, trying to keep my voice even. "I feel like I'm in shock." I won't read you anymore, but this is Love and Gelato and I gave this one 4 stars. Next is a big whopper of a book. It is coming up to 800 pages, but it is actually 3 books combined into one. It's the first sort of omnibus of a summer novel by Catherine Applegate, and this one's called Beach Blondes, so it combines books 1, 2 and 3. She wrote, I didn't know this, but she also wrote a series called the Au Pair series. She's written quite a lot of different things, but this is June, July and August combined together, and I was just in the mood. It was super duper hot here and I wanted a beach read. I kind of wanted that vibe of The Summer I Turned Pretty, and this one really fit the bill from the synopsis. We're following Summer. She's gone to Florida for the summer to live with her aunt and her cousin, and we follow her exploits really over this summer in Florida. We meet the new friends that she makes. There is boys and various other things that happen. It is very light. And there are times where Summer really irritated me because she was a little bit like, oh, the boys love me. And I didn't think she was very careful. But it sort of makes sense because she's not had experience of boyfriends and boys before. This is sort of her first time around and having this sort of attention from boys. And she doesn't really know how to deal with it. So we do watch that and we see her sort of progress in that way. Oh, in the usual YA style, there is a lot of talk about love very quickly, but more than that, there is actually some really heavy topics covered in this. There is triggers for rape and drugging, I suppose, and there is some really interesting ways that this is dealt with, and it looks at depression and suicide and suicidal thoughts. So within here are some really heavy topics that are touched upon, and I really enjoyed the way that some of these were looked at. I don't feel like this book really in-depth tackled a lot of these issues, and I think perhaps things were made easier a little quickly, but it was a really fun read. It did what it said in the tin for me, and it got me away thinking of beaches and bikinis, which I wish I'd been in last week, but I don't get in bikinis anymore. I've had a baby. I don't quite look the same as I used to. I'm more of a swimming costume girl. But yeah, it was really good, and I'm definitely going to be continuing on with this series. So I gave this one 4 stars also. And then the final book I want to talk about is Showstopper by Hayley Barker. This isn't what the front cover will look like because this is an ARC I was very kindly sent, but again, won't affect my views in any way. I read this alongside Janet from Swirly Girly Reads. It was part of our Emoji-a-thon, one of our Emoji-a-thon picks, and it was really a really good read. It's set in a time where people that aren't of this kind of, it's almost, well, for me it draws parallels to sort of the Nazi idea of the Aryan race. So if you're not of this particular cultural, this particular race, you are like second-class citizens and called dregs, and you are basically slaves and treated badly, don't get any benefits, and a lot of people sell their children into this sort of circus thinking that their children might get a better life. They're performers for the for the amusement of the higher up people, and but this circus isn't all it seems. People die in horrific ways, and the masses come and watch for their sport. We're following multiple points of view. We're following the point of view of Ben and Hashiko. Hashiko is the aerial acrobat in this circus. She's nicknamed the Cat for her 9 lives and for her sort of ability. And Ben comes from one of the most powerful government families, and it's how their paths cross, how he starts to think that perhaps things shouldn't be the way they are, and their sort of battle against this. This sets us up for a series, I believe, or maybe a trilogy, and it was good. It was very predictable. I could see from the outset where we were headed with it, and that's what happened. There were some interesting things along the way. There's some very, very graphic, shocking things that happen in here, so if you're a bit squeamy, not sure it would be for you, but it was enjoyable. It was a fun, fast read, a little predictable, reminded me a little bit too much of sort of other books, sort of mashed together a little bit. But if you like those sort of books, if you like the sort of noughts and crosses Malorie Blackman, the sort of, the realisation of the person who's in the privileged class, realising that things shouldn't be that way and fighting against their own people to try and get equality, then I think you'll enjoy it. And, as I say, it wasn't terrible, it just wasn't my favourite, so I gave it 3 stars. So that's some of the books that I've read recently, and have you read any of these? Did you enjoy them? What have you been reading recently? And I look forward to speaking to you soon. Bye for now, BookTube.